Any day between 20th to 29th, the first batch of 1,000 officers from Kenya that are going to be deployed in Haiti will fly out of the country. And according to the list that has been released, 500 officers will leave, with a bunch of another 100 that are going to be officials, and some are going to be some support staff. That will be the first batch. Then the other will be done later. The United States involvement in Haiti mission is very dominant, and they have tried to show the world that they want peace to be restored in Haiti. Just 2 weeks before that, they dispatched their police to go and establish military barracks in Haiti that is going to be the home to more than 5,000 officers coming from other nations that are going to have multi-agency team in Haiti. Remember, what the public need to understand is this is not an exclusively Kenyan mission. This is a mission where Kenya is going to give 1,000 officers, Benin is going to give some, I think Burundi, and some other countries from the Caribbean nation, even Ecuador and Colombia, if I'm not wrong, are also going to donate their police officers, their officers there. But Kenya will be the lead nation. Now, but even as the country prepares for that, and we have seen officers that were on leave have been recalled as Kenya prepares to Haiti. That report has emerged just today that we have recalled all the officers that were on leave to resume work as Kenya prepares to remove 1,000 officers from our database who will be deployed in Haiti. Of course, one of the officers that has been on leave is IG Kome. So, I may want to challenge you. When last did you see Japhet Kome? When last did you see Kome? You will tell me. You'll just go and check. Go and check his social media pages. I think that was more than 2 weeks ago that information emerged that he had taken a leave. And that leave, I don't know whether he's back, but of course we understood he took a leave. Now, just as Kenya prepares for that, there is some devastating expose by CNN. And CNN is saying that there is a video that has emerged of guns that are being smuggled from USA through some port or through mountains and overseas, and is getting its way to Haiti gangs in Haiti. I saw that expose. Of course, because of copyright, I cannot play that video in this channel because it's a video that belongs to CNN and I cannot play it here. But you can go and check. I think the story is all over about how guns are being smuggled from United States to Haiti gangs in Haiti. This is a very devastating news because part of analysts, global analysts on peacekeeping mission in Haiti have been saying that the mission that Kenya is leading in Haiti is going to be the first one. If the US had tried in the past, in some other countries there have been some other interventions in the past, they have not been very successful because of dynamics like what the CNN is exposing. And so this story has emerged from CNN. CNN is pro-US. What is the objective of them releasing that expose at this time? Of course, I know it's telling the officers that are going to Haiti that things are not going to be very rosy because there are so many other factors involved. Fine. The deployment of security forces to Haiti is something that cannot be underestimated, and the interim president, who was elected in the transition by the Transition Council, also wrote a letter to Kenya, and it was part of the procedures, demanding or rather requesting for the support. Because remember, the letter that was written by the first PM, the Henry Oriel, was invalid because that person, because he was ousted out of power, he had to resign out of power. And so the interim president, who was put up by the Transition Council, wrote a letter to the country. And so USA, United States of America, has been much on top, hands on deck on the matters of Haiti. And what they have done is, despite the fact that they have the most sophisticated weapons in the country to crush anyone and anything in the world, they've only opted to give money but not take their soldiers. They've given Kenya the billions, and one of American diplomats was saying that Kenya is just going to Haiti because money has been put on table. These discussions have been there about the monetary income that Kenya is getting by going to Haiti. And so them, they've opted to only give money, monetary support, but they're not going in person to be in Haiti. So if they also need to restore peace in Haiti, then with their high-level intelligence, with most developed economies in the world, what will stop them from stopping the smuggling of guns to Haiti? What would actually stop them from ensuring, if the exposed by CNN is something to go by, then what will stop them from making sure that no more guns or no guns get to Haiti gangs? You know that is already a cutting-edge intervention to ensure that you finish Haiti gangs completely. No diplomat or no political observer, no journalists have given us a very vivid comparison of what Haiti gangs are. You try to ask, are they like bandits? Someone say, no, they're not bandits. Are they like Nairobi business community with the red lock? Someone says, no, they're more than. Are they like Al-Shabaab? They're not. No one have really the measure of, a real picture of who are these Haiti gangs. They've just been called gangs. No one has a real measure. But this story of guns being smuggled from United States to Haiti at a time when our soldiers from Africa and other Caribbean nations, I saw Canada withdrew and said they're also giving money, they're not going to send their soldiers to Haiti, is a very bad news. It's not a very welcome news, because really something needs to be done. And that is why I just want to, as I revisit this story on this, I think there's some 3 or 4 things that Kenya must ensure in Haiti. Because now it's not, as in the level where we are, it's not a question of whether they are going to not or not. They are going. It's only about time. And that has to be kept as a big secret. The intelligence about Kenyan deployment there has to be a big secret. Why? Remember when Henry O'Reilly was in the country, he came to country Kenya, and when he was leaving, going back to Haiti, he could not even get a place. He could not go there because the gangs then emerged with violence. So I also believe that the specific date that the Kenyan police will be flying to Haiti will not be made public. Maybe we will just have to know that they have left. But it will not be publicized. Because if, according to what I realized, these gangs, if you tell them the Kenyan deployment police is arriving today, they will go and close those ports. They will go and camp in the ports and no plane will land there, probably. I'm just thinking around it. Remember, these people are not jokers. What I've always been reading, they've been able to capture airport. An international airport in Haiti. They've been able to capture the roads. They've been able to capture the major cities. These people are not your pedestrian, your normal day gangs. These people are not your normal day gangs. This is a very serious team, well coordinated, and there seems to be something going on here. Now, 2 things are involved why Kenya must trade careful. Number 1, much as Joe Biden administration could be out to restore peace in Haiti, But that move is also facing some aggression from a clique of people from the US. Yes. Is there a syndicate that is manufacturing guns, that are supplying guns to Haiti? Guns from the US. That also means if the person who is supplying guns is getting a market for his guns. But the other angle here is that probably he is supporting the gangs. And if he is supporting the gangs, then it means clearly that he or she could be against the Haiti mission. So contrary to what is being made public, that the need to restore peace in Haiti cannot be underestimated and has a unitary support from everyone. It's not true that everyone and every clique of power in the world is supporting Haiti mission. And that is why I'm looking at 3 or 4 things that Kenya must do. Number 1, we must stick to the coordinates. And I think I was reading this one of the newspapers, that if Kenyan soldiers will be deployed to guard parliament, to guard parliament, to guard the security installation like presidential palace, or to guard what and what, that's what we should stick to. And the timeline, we should stick to that, because, and why am I saying that? Something happened when Kenya went to Somalia. It was largely said. You know the reason why why there was a little bit of aggression from the start of the Kenyan mission in Somalia was those rogue Al-Shabaab militia. They're not militia, they're terrorists. Those rogue fellows, they felt like we had overdone what we went there to do. First it was like we're going to guard our borders so that they don't cross. But they were surging, so we decided to go. The Kenyan force decided to go and fish them out of the forest. Now, that is what I'm also saying here. We must remain within our coordinates. What is the objective? And we do it. Number 2, the Haiti mission, Kenya must make sure that we get the maximum support that our soldiers need there. Not anymore should we hear stories documented of Kenyan soldiers suffering in Haiti. That should not be the case. I'm saying this because in Somalia here, there are stories documented that were done that our soldiers that went to Somalia resorted to selling charcoal. Resorted to selling charcoal. Why? While that was seen as part of the black market, people just making some proceeds from it. But in real sense, there was also underfunding. And we found ourselves in that situation. So even in this one in Haiti, the enemy is not just Haiti gang. Haiti gang is a gang that is also getting support elsewhere. So the team needs maximum support. Otherwise, we do not want to report very negative stories. At this moment, we have our sons and daughters of this country that are living this country. Now, this is not the time to pass the fear messages, the panic messages of people coming back with the body bags. Now, this is the time now to psych them up and say, it is now reached at a point now to go. They're also on a mission of saving another country. Probably, it's just to give them the good one. And that is why I insist, if money hits our accounts here in Kenya, let that money reflect in the accounts of those soldiers. Without triangulation here. Someone is supposed to get X number of dollars and then someone uses the dollars and start making very funny stories. We do not want to read those stories of, we were supposed to be paid X amount, we were paid this. We don't want to hear those things. Number 2, the timeline and the target, the objective set, once achieved, we should detach. If the objective is to ensure that Haiti, by the time we are leaving, they have democratically elected leader, as a president in there. That is what we should achieve and come back. What is the achievement? What will be the measure of peace? What is the measure of the success of the mission? It should be that clear. That is not a place to be for long. If it is 1 year, and within 1 year we make sure the gangs are neutralized and there is a democratically elected government in power, people leave, that is it. The measure of peace must be there. And once that is achieved, we should come back. Because that information of US guns being smuggled from US to Haiti, to me, it's not something to be welcomed. Thank you, guys.